A Miami socialite vanished after threatening to expose a powerful businessman's secret affair, leaving her family devastated and police with no leads. But 18 months later, construction workers breaking ground on a luxury hotel foundation find something buried deep beneath the concrete that would change everything and reveal the shocking truth behind her disappearance. Valentina Rodriguez was not the type of woman who backed down from a fight. The 32-year-old real estate agent had built her reputation in Miami's competitive luxury market through sheer determination and an unwillingness to accept no for an answer. But on the night of March 15, 2022, that same fierce determination would lead her into a confrontation that nearly cost her everything. Vincent Torino thought he had eliminated his problem. The 45-year-old businessman, with his perfectly manicured appearance and connections that reached deep into Miami's underground, believed he had silenced the one person who could destroy his carefully constructed life. His wife Sofia, his reputation, his empire. Everything depended on keeping certain secrets buried. But some secrets refused to stay hidden, and some people refused to stay silent, even when powerful men try to make them disappear forever. Vincent Torino commanded respect wherever he walked in Miami. His legitimate businesses, 3 upscale restaurants, 2 luxury car dealerships, and a construction company, generated millions in revenue each year. But those who understood Miami's power structure knew that Vincent's real influence came from his family connections that traced back to New York's organized crime families of the 1970s. Sofia Torino had married Vincent 12 years earlier, drawn to his charm and apparent success. The daughter of a prominent Miami judge, Sofia brought her own social standing to their union. She hosted charity galas, served on hospital boards, and maintained the perfect image of a devoted wife. Their Coral Gables mansion, worth $4.7 million, became a gathering place for Miami's elite. But perfection, as Sofia would learn, often masks the darkest truths. Valentina Rodriguez entered their world through business, not pleasure. As a top agent with prestige properties, Miami, she specialized in luxury waterfront estates. Her client list included celebrities, professional athletes, and successful entrepreneurs who valued both her expertise and discretion. Standing 5 feet 7 inches tall, with striking features and an MBA from the University of Miami, Valentina had worked tirelessly to establish herself in a male-dominated industry. Her family had immigrated from Colombia when she was 8 years old, and her parents still operated a small restaurant in Little Havana. Valentina sent them $1,500 every month and visited every Sunday for dinner. She drove a white BMW convertible, lived in a downtown high-rise, and had never been married, choosing instead to focus on building her career. The intersection of Vincent's world and Valentina's expertise would prove combustible. Miami's luxury real estate market thrived on relationships, and Vincent needed someone trustworthy to handle a delicate transaction. His construction company had acquired a prime piece of oceanfront property through what he called complex negotiations, the kind that sometimes required persuasion beyond standard business practices. He needed an agent who could sell the property quickly and quietly, without asking uncomfortable questions about its acquisition. Valentina's reputation for discretion made her the obvious choice. What nobody anticipated was the immediate chemistry between the married businessman and the ambitious agent. Their first meeting took place at Ocean Drive Bistro, one of Vincent's restaurants. He had chosen a corner booth where they could speak privately about the property details. Valentina arrived exactly on time, carrying a leather portfolio containing market analyses and comparable sales data. She had researched Vincent's businesses extensively, noting his success but remaining unaware of his family's darker connections. Vincent was immediately struck by Valentina's confidence. She did not defer to him the way most people did, instead challenging his expectations about the property's value and marketing timeline. Her directness intrigued him, and her beauty did not go unnoticed. By the end of their 2-hour meeting, Vincent had agreed to list the property at Valentina's suggested price, significantly higher than his initial expectations. More importantly, he had suggested they meet again the following week to discuss additional properties. Sofia noticed the change in her husband immediately. Vincent began working late more frequently, taking phone calls in private, and paying unusual attention to his appearance. When she asked about his new business ventures, he provided vague answers about expansion opportunities and market timing. Sophia had learned during 12 years of marriage that pressing Vincent for details often led to arguments, so she chose to trust rather than investigate. That trust would prove costly. The second meeting between Vincent and Valentina took place at her downtown office on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Vincent had brought contracts for 3 additional properties, each requiring specialized handling due to their acquisition circumstances. As Valentina reviewed the paperwork, Vincent found himself studying her profile, admiring her concentration and professionalism. Their conversation gradually shifted from business to personal topics. Vincent learned about Valentina's family, her struggles to establish credibility in Miami's real estate market, and her dreams of opening her own brokerage firm. Valentina discovered that Vincent felt trapped by expectations, his family's legacy, his wife's social circle, and the constant pressure to maintain appearances. By their 4th meeting, they were no longer discussing real estate. The affair began slowly, built on lengthy phone conversations and carefully scheduled encounters. Vincent would visit Valentina's office after normal business hours, and she would meet him at discreet restaurants outside their usual social circles. They shared ambitions, frustrations, and increasingly intimate moments. Valentina knew Vincent was married, but he painted his marriage as a business arrangement, loveless and maintained solely for appearances. He described Sophia as cold and manipulative, someone who cared more about social status than genuine connection. These characterizations, while completely false, fed into Valentina's growing belief that she and Vincent were meant to be together. Vincent, meanwhile, was living a dangerous double life. He genuinely cared for Valentina and found in her a passion that had been missing from his marriage for years. But he also understood that his family connections and business empire depended on maintaining his respectable image. Divorce was not an option for a man in his position. It would signal weakness to dangerous people who valued loyalty above all else. For 8 months, Vincent managed to balance both relationships. He showered Valentina with expensive gifts, diamond earrings, designer handbags, weekend trips to Key West, while maintaining his role as the devoted husband at home. Sophia suspected nothing, trusting Vincent's explanations about business travel and late meetings. But secrets this significant cannot remain hidden indefinitely. The first crack in Vincent's facade appeared when Sophia found a restaurant receipt in his jacket pocket. Ocean Pearl, an intimate seafood restaurant in South Beach, was not a place Vincent typically conducted business. The receipt showed dinner for 2, including a bottle of champagne that cost $300. When Sophia asked about it, Vincent claimed he had entertained a potential investor, but his explanation seemed rehearsed and defensive. Sophia began paying closer attention to Vincent's behavior, noting the new cologne he wore, the way he guarded his phone, and his sudden interest in weekend business trips. She hired a private investigator without telling Vincent, hoping to confirm her suspicions or put her fears to rest. Meanwhile, Valentina was growing impatient with the secrecy. After 8 months of clandestine meetings and whispered promises, she wanted Vincent to leave his wife and build a legitimate life together. She had fallen deeply in love and believed Vincent felt the same way. When he continued to delay any concrete steps toward divorce, Valentina began questioning his true intentions. Their relationship reached a crisis point during a weekend in Key Largo. Valentina had expected a romantic getaway, but Vincent seemed distracted and distant. When she pressed him about their future together, he became evasive, talking about timing and complications. Valentina realized that Vincent might never leave his wife, and the possibility filled her with rage and heartbreak. The drive back to Miami was conducted in tense silence. Valentina made a decision that would change everything. If Vincent would not choose her willingly, she would force his hand by exposing their affair to Sophia. Vincent sensed the shift in Valentina's attitude immediately. Her text became demanding rather than affectionate, and her patience with his excuses evaporated completely. When she threatened to call Sophia directly, Vincent realized he faced a crisis that could destroy everything he had built. His response to that crisis would reveal just how dangerous Vincent Torino could be when cornered. Vincent Torino had built his life on control. Every relationship, every business deal, every social interaction was carefully managed to maintain his position and protect his interests. Valentina's threat to expose their affair represented a complete loss of that control, and Vincent could not allow it to happen. His first instinct was negotiation. He offered Valentina money, $50,000 to end their relationship quietly and move to another city. When she refused, he doubled the offer. Valentina was insulted by his attempts to buy her silence, interpreting them as proof that their entire relationship had been meaningless to him. During what would be their final phone conversation, Valentina delivered an ultimatum that terrified Vincent. "You have 72 hours to tell Sofia about us, or I will call her myself." And Vincent, "I have photographs, text messages, and hotel receipts. She will know everything." Vincent knew Valentina was not bluffing. Her real estate background had taught her to document everything, and she had indeed kept detailed records of their affair. Phone records, restaurant receipts, photographs from their trips. Evidence that would not only destroy his marriage, but potentially expose him to retaliation from family members who valued loyalty above all else. Sofia's private investigator had already provided her with preliminary evidence of Vincent's infidelity. Photographs of Vincent and Valentina entering hotels, restaurant surveillance footage, and phone records painted a clear picture of their 8-month affair. Sofia had not yet confronted Vincent, choosing instead to gather complete evidence before deciding how to proceed. Vincent, unaware that Sofia already suspected the truth, focused entirely on preventing Valentina from exposing their relationship. His solution would draw on resources and methods learned from his family's darker traditions. Tony Marcelli had worked for Vincent's construction company for 6 years, but his real value came from his willingness to handle problems that required discretion. A former enforcer from New Jersey, Tony understood the importance of loyalty and the consequences of betrayal. When Vincent approached him with a delicate situation requiring immediate resolution, Tony did not ask unnecessary questions. The plan Vincent outlined was simple, but effective. Valentina would be invited to a final meeting under the pretense of Vincent agreeing to her demands. The meeting would take place at a construction site for Vincent's new hotel project, a location that offered privacy and convenient disposal options. Tony would handle the practical aspects while Vincent maintained plausible deniability. Vincent called Valentina on March 14th. Exactly 71 hours after her ultimatum, his voice carried a defeated tone as he agreed to leave Sofia and start a new life with Valentina. He suggested they meet the following evening at the construction site for his Ocean View Palace Hotel project to discuss their plans privately, away from any possibility of discovery. Valentina was overjoyed. After months of uncertainty and weeks of threats, Vincent had finally chosen her over his marriage. She agreed to meet him at the construction site at 9 o'clock in the evening, bringing the evidence she had collected as a gesture of good faith. Once Vincent committed to their relationship, she would destroy the materials that could harm him. March 15th was a Tuesday, and Miami experienced unusually cool weather, with intermittent rain showers. Valentina spent the afternoon shopping for a new dress, wanting to look perfect for what she believed would be the beginning of her new life with Vincent. She called her mother to cancel their planned dinner, explaining that she had an important business meeting, but promising to visit over the weekend. Vincent spent the day finalizing arrangements with Tony and establishing his alibi. He would attend a charity board meeting at the Marriott Hotel, ensuring dozens of witnesses could confirm his presence during the critical time window. The meeting was scheduled to run until 10:30 in the evening, providing perfect cover for his whereabouts. Sofia, still unaware of the evening's planned events, noticed Vincent's unusual nervousness during dinner. He barely touched his food and kept checking his phone, behavior that struck her as odd even considering his recent strange conduct. When Vincent left for his board meeting at 7:30, Sofia felt an inexplicable sense of unease. At 8:45, Valentina arrived at the Ocean View Palace construction site. The partially completed hotel rose 15 stories above Biscayne Bay, its skeletal frame illuminated by work lights that cast long shadows across the concrete foundation. Tony Marcelli was waiting in the site trailer, having told the security guard to take an extended break. Valentina entered the trailer carrying a manila envelope containing the evidence she had promised to destroy. She wore the new dress she had purchased that afternoon, a red silk number that complemented her dark hair perfectly. Her plan was to celebrate with Vincent, destroy the compromising materials together, and begin planning their future. But Vincent was nowhere to be found. Tony explained that Vincent had been delayed at his meeting, but would arrive shortly. He offered Valentina coffee, and suggested they wait in the main hotel structure, where Vincent wanted to show her the penthouse suite that would serve as their temporary home while they planned their permanent relocation. Valentina followed Tony into the concrete shell of the hotel, her high heels echoing against the unfinished floors. The work lights created an almost surreal atmosphere, and she began to feel uncomfortable about the isolated location. But her excitement about finally being with Vincent openly overwhelmed her caution. They rode the construction elevator to the 15th floor, where the penthouse suite offered panoramic views of Miami's skyline. Tony positioned himself between Valentina and the elevator, and his demeanor suddenly changed from friendly to menacing. What happened next would test every survival instinct Valentina had ever possessed. Tony Marcelli was not a killer by nature, despite his reputation and background. When Vincent had approached him about eliminating the Valentina problem, Tony had agreed out of loyalty rather than enthusiasm. But as he stood facing the beautiful woman in the red dress, Tony found himself questioning the necessity of what Vincent had asked him to do. Valentina sensed the shift in Tony's behavior immediately. Her real estate career had taught her to read people quickly, and she recognized danger when she saw it. Instead of panicking, she engaged Tony in conversation, trying to understand the situation and find a way to survive. "Vincent is not coming, is he?" she asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Tony shook his head slowly. "Mr. Torino cannot have you talking to his wife. You understand." Valentina understood perfectly. She also understood that her survival depended on changing Tony's mind about whatever instructions Vincent had given him. Drawing on every negotiation skill she had learned, Valentina began talking. She told Tony about her family, her dreams, her genuine love for Vincent. She explained that she had never intended to destroy Vincent's life, only to build a future with him. Most importantly, she offered Tony something Vincent had not: a solution that would satisfy everyone's needs without violence. Valentina proposed staging her own disappearance. If everyone believed she was dead, Vincent's problem would be solved without actually killing her. She could relocate to another city, start a new life, and never contact Vincent or his family again. The evidence she had brought could be destroyed, and Vincent's marriage would remain intact. Tony was intrigued by the proposal. His instructions from Vincent had been clear, but not specific about methods. If Valentina disappeared permanently and posed no future threat, the practical result would be the same whether she was dead or simply gone. But Tony also understood Vincent's personality. Vincent would want proof that the problem had been eliminated permanently. Simply allowing Valentina to leave would not satisfy Vincent's need for certainty and control. Valentina anticipated this objection and proposed a more elaborate deception. They would stage evidence of her death, clothing, personal items, perhaps some blood, without actually killing her. Vincent would believe she was dead, and Valentina would disappear to start a new life elsewhere. The plan they developed over the next 2 hours was complex, but achievable. Valentina would provide hair samples and blood, which Tony would use to create a crime scene in her apartment. Her car would be abandoned at a remote location, and personal items would be scattered to suggest violence. Meanwhile, Valentina would use cash she had saved to relocate to another state, under a new identity. Tony had connections that could provide false identification documents, and Valentina had skills that would allow her to build a new career anywhere. The deception would need to be thorough enough to convince police investigators as well as Vincent, but both Tony and Valentina were motivated to make it work. They spent the rest of the night implementing their plan. Using tools from the construction site, they collected physical evidence that would suggest Valentina's death. Blood samples, hair, fabric from her dress, materials that would convince investigators that violence had occurred. Tony drove Valentina to her apartment, where she packed essential items and withdrew $25,000 in cash from her various accounts. They created a convincing crime scene, complete with overturned furniture and blood evidence, then drove her car to an abandoned area near the Everglades. By dawn, Valentina Rodriguez had officially disappeared from Miami. Vincent received Tony's call at 6:30 in the morning, while Sophia still slept beside him. Tony's report was brief and definitive. The problem had been eliminated, and there would be no further complications. Vincent felt overwhelming relief, mixed with unexpected grief for the woman he had genuinely cared about. Sophia woke to find Vincent crying softly, claiming he had received news about a business associate's sudden death. His emotional state struck her as unusual, but she attributed it to stress from his recent erratic behavior. The Miami Police Department opened a missing person investigation when Valentina failed to appear for appointments and could not be reached by family or colleagues. The crime scene at her apartment suggested foul play, and detectives began interviewing her associates and examining her recent activities. Vincent submitted to police questioning as one of Valentina's recent clients, expressing appropriate concern while providing a carefully constructed alibi. His charity board meeting attendance was well documented, and several prominent witnesses confirmed his presence during the critical time period. Sophia watched her husband's reaction to news reports about Valentina's disappearance with growing suspicion. Vincent seemed genuinely affected by the investigation, following news coverage obsessively and asking detailed questions about police progress. His behavior confirmed Sophia's worst fears about their relationship. But Sophia had no idea that her husband believed he had ordered Valentina's murder. 18 months later, construction workers breaking ground for the Ocean View Palace Hotel's foundation expansion made a discovery that would change everything. Buried beneath 3 feet of concrete, they found a waterproof container holding documents, photographs, and a detailed written account of the events of March 15th. Valentina had anticipated that Vincent might eventually face consequences for his actions, and she had prepared insurance in the form of complete documentation. Her written statement detailed Vincent's plan to have her killed, Tony's decision to help her fake her death, and her reasons for choosing survival over revenge. The discovery prompted a complete reopening of the Valentina Rodriguez case. Police investigators, armed with Valentina's detailed account and physical evidence she had preserved, began building a case against Vincent Torino for conspiracy to commit murder. Meanwhile, Valentina had spent 18 months building a new life in Portland, Oregon. Working as a property manager under the name Victoria Ramirez, she had maintained minimal contact with Tony Marcelli, who periodically confirmed that Vincent believed she was dead and had shown no signs of investigating her disappearance further. When Portland police contacted her about the Miami investigation, Valentina faced a choice that would define the rest of her life. She could remain hidden and allow Vincent to escape consequences for his actions, or she could return to testify and risk exposing herself to potential retaliation. Valentina chose justice over safety. Her testimony before a Miami grand jury was devastating. She provided detailed accounts of Vincent's threats, recordings of their phone conversations she had preserved, and documentation of Tony's role in helping her fake her death. Most damaging was Vincent's clear intent to have her killed rather than face the consequences of their affair. Vincent was arrested at his Coral Gables mansion on charges of conspiracy to commit murder and witness intimidation. The arrest, conducted in front of news cameras and neighborhood witnesses, marked the complete destruction of the respectable image he had spent decades building. Sophia filed for divorce immediately, using evidence provided by her private investigator and Valentina's testimony to secure a favorable settlement. She retained their home, received half of Vincent's legitimate business assets, and gained full control of their joint charitable foundation. Tony Marcelli cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges, providing additional details about Vincent's instructions and confirming Valentina's account of their survival plan. His testimony eliminated any doubt about Vincent's intentions and sealed the case against him. The trial attracted national media attention, highlighting the intersection of organized crime, luxury lifestyle, and domestic violence. Valentina's decision to fake her death, rather than flee openly, resonated with domestic violence advocates, who praised her resourcefulness while acknowledging the extreme circumstances that had made such deception necessary. Vincent was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His business empire collapsed under federal investigation, and his family connections offered no protection once his crimes became public knowledge. Valentina returned to Miami permanently, resuming her career under her real name and becoming an advocate for women facing domestic violence and intimidation. She established a foundation, providing legal and financial assistance to women seeking to escape dangerous relationships, using her survival experience to help others find safer alternatives. Sophia Torino channeled her painful experience into meaningful action, using her social connections and financial resources to support domestic violence programs throughout Miami. Her public speaking about the signs of deception and manipulation helped countless women recognize dangerous patterns in their own relationships. The case offered profound lessons about choice, consequence, and survival. Vincent's decision to choose violence over honesty cost him everything he valued: his freedom, his reputation, his family, and his fortune. His inability to accept responsibility for his actions and deal with consequences maturely led to his complete downfall. Valentina's survival demonstrated the power of quick thinking and adaptability in life-threatening situations. Her willingness to sacrifice her immediate desires for long-term safety saved her life and ultimately brought justice to a dangerous man. Most importantly, the case illustrated how deception and betrayal create cascading consequences that eventually destroy everyone involved. Vincent's affair might have ended his marriage, but his attempts to cover it up through violence destroyed his entire life. Sophia's experience showed how trust, once broken, can never be fully restored, but it can be transformed into wisdom that protects others from similar harm. Her journey from victim to advocate demonstrated the possibility of finding meaning and purpose, even in the aftermath of profound betrayal. The Torino case remains one of Miami's most discussed criminal cases, not because of its violence, but because of its ultimate demonstration that survival and justice are possible even when facing overwhelming odds. Valentina Rodriguez's decision to choose life over revenge, combined with her courage to eventually seek justice, created an outcome that protected future victims, while holding a dangerous man accountable for his actions. Today, Vincent Torino serves his sentence in federal prison, his empire reduced to cautionary tale. Sophia Torino has remarried a pediatric surgeon and continues her advocacy work. Valentina Rodriguez operates one of Portland's most successful property management companies, while maintaining her Miami foundation. Their outcomes reflect the choices they made when facing impossible circumstances. Vincent chose deception and violence, leading to his destruction. Valentina chose survival and eventual justice, leading to a meaningful new life. Sophia chose healing and service, transforming her pain into protection for others. The case reminds us that our responses to crisis define our character more than the crisis itself. When faced with consequences for our actions, we can choose responsibility or denial, growth or destruction, service or selfishness. These choices determine whether we build lives worth living or create disasters that consume everything we value. If this case has taught you something valuable about choices, consequences, or survival, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights and experiences help build a community where we can all learn from each other's wisdom. And if you found this analysis helpful, please subscribe to True Crime Village for more stories that explore not just what happened, but what we can learn from the people who lived through these extraordinary circumstances. Every subscription helps us continue bringing you cases that offer both compelling narratives and meaningful life lessons. Until our next case, remember that every choice creates consequences, and every consequence offers a chance to choose again. Choose wisely.